I thank Marie Dennis to be here, and now I will introduce you shortly and briefly, and you can start your intervention. Marie Dennis, come dicevo, vive a Washington ed è stata per molti anni co-presidente del movimento internazionale. Forse molti non sanno, alcuni lo sanno, altri no. Il movimento internazionale ha sia un presidente vescovo, come succede in Italia, che però è affiancato da una figura femminile che ha pari dignità. Cioè una cosa molto interessante, forse non così usuale nel panorama italiano, ma anche mondiale. Fra le varie iniziative che ha promosso durante la sua copresidenza, è stata anche promotrice di un'iniziativa cattolica sulla non violenza, che ha portato all'organizzazione di vari incontri, in particolare 2 in Vaticano. Maria adesso ci descriverà appunto come è nata questa idea e quali sono stati i passi fatti fino adesso e quali sono le prospettive. Marie, you can start your intervention. Thanks.
Thank you, grazie, Franco, and my apologies that I do not speak Italian. The Catholic Nonviolence Initiative, which is a project of Pax Christi International, began with a few simple questions a few years ago. What if 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide had a full understanding of the power and effectiveness of active nonviolence and the connection of nonviolence to the heart of the gospel? What if we all knew how to apply nonviolent tools to diffuse conflict before it became violent? What if the Catholic Church institutionally committed its whole institution, its channels of communication and diplomacy, and its vast spiritual, intellectual, and financial resources to developing a new moral framework and language for discerning ways to prevent atrocities, to protect people, and to protect the planet? As you know, I'm sure, nonviolence has been an important value for Pax Christi since it was founded 75 years ago. But these particular questions were discussed at a small conference on nonviolence and just peace that was held in Rome in 2016, co-sponsored by the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace. That was before the Dicastery for Integral Human Development was established, and Pax Christi International. A number of religious congregations were also involved. Among the 80 participants in this small conference were many people who live in contexts of egregious violence and war. People from Iraq and Afghanistan, Palestine and Uganda, South Sudan and Colombia, Guatemala, Mexico, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, and more. What they shared with us in those few days helped us to think much more deeply about the nature and complexity of violence. Violence is war and physical destruction, for sure, but as you know very well, violence is also structural, systemic, and cultural. Racism is violence, so is environmental destruction, political repression, apartheid, economic injustice, and so on. In those days, we also developed a deeper, more nuanced and complex understanding of nonviolence as an option that is active, not passive, and much more than pacifism, that works to stop repression and violence, but also to promote social justice, human dignity, and a healthy planet. We have been describing nonviolence as a spirituality, a way of life, a global ethic, and a diverse set of tools for interrupting violence, transforming conflict, and promoting social justice and ecological integrity. Those of us who gathered at that small conference a few years ago appealed to the Catholic Church to develop Catholic social thought on nonviolence, to integrate gospel nonviolence into the life and the work of the Church, to promote nonviolent practices and strategies, and to contribute in significant ways to a global conversation on nonviolence. moving the just war tradition further into the background of Catholic teaching and lifting up the prophetic voices of peacemakers and nonviolent activists around the world. We specifically asked Pope Francis to write an encyclical on nonviolence, and we're still waiting for that. The Catholic Nonviolence Initiative grew out of that 2016 conference as a project of Pax Christi International, as did an Orbis book called Choosing Peace that recounted the stories that were shared during that conference. We were very happy when Pope Francis wrote his 2017 World Day of Peace message on nonviolence, a style of politics for peace. And we have been in continuous dialogue with the Vatican, primarily the Dicastery for Integral Human Development, since then. In 2017, 5 virtual Catholic Nonviolence Initiative roundtables engaged theologians and peace practitioners from around the world in regular reflection on different aspects of nonviolence. It was our first encounter with large international Zoom meetings, and they worked very well. We focused one on a systematic theology of nonviolence, another on scriptural exegesis of nonviolence, a third on a new moral framework based on nonviolence, a fourth on specific examples of nonviolent action practiced in different circumstances of violence around the world. And then the fifth was on what would it mean for the church to actually integrate nonviolence into all of its programs and practices. The results of these roundtable conversations formed the basis of a second conference co-sponsored by the Dicastery for Integral Human Development and Pax Christi International that was held in Rome in 2019. The roundtable results and the proceedings of that second conference are collected in another book published by Pax Christi last year, Advancing Nonviolence and Just Peace in the Church and the World. As I mentioned, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative began in very regular dialogue with the Vatican, both directly and by contributing to several Vatican-sponsored conferences, one on nuclear disarmament, another on cybersecurity, another on the anniversary of Caritas Veritate, but also by actively participating in the Vatican's COVID-19 Commission, specifically in the task forces on security and ecology, and by making efforts, particularly in the last year, to integrate nonviolence into the tremendous Laudato Si action platform process that is culminating now and in the next month or so. We've also been engaged in pretty active conversation with the local Catholic Church through particularly Catholic universities, encouraging them to integrate nonviolence into curricula, to sponsor conferences or symposia on nonviolence, to promote research on nonviolence, and quite a few Catholic universities in different parts of the world have begun to do so. We've been talking with religious congregations, most particularly both at a national level, but also through the unions of superiors general based in Rome. We've been in an interesting dialogue with a number of bishops and bishops' conferences, again, bishops from many different contexts around the world, from the Middle East, from the Asia Pacific, from Latin America, from Europe and the US. We've had a few initial conversations with international Catholic organizations like the International Federation of Catholic Universities, with Caritas International, with the Jesuit Refugee Services, and so on. And we are hoping to build those conversations more and more, because we believe that some of those Catholic institutions and the local churches understand how nonviolent works in different contexts, that nonviolence in one particular context is going to be quite different than it will be in another part of the world. And then finally, we're just about to publish, as Franco said, and Alice will share with you, an initial tool for policymakers to help political leaders at every level, at a local level, a national level, and an international level, understand how public policy can help move our societies from perpetually turning to weapons and violence to deal with conflict and violence, and instead to invest in developing and scaling up nonviolent tools from diplomacy, unarmed civilian protection, restorative justice, trauma healing, civil resistance, even humor, and on and on. This is just a little snapshot of what the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative and Pax Christi member organizations around the world have been doing to try to deepen and promote our both our understanding of the possibility for nonviolence to be an effective tool in this age, and to make that happen within the Catholic community. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Very nice indeed. Thanks a lot. You said almost everything should be said. We should stop here because it was complete and perfect. Ringraziamo Marie per l'intervento che secondo me è stato veramente esaustivo, interessante, pieno di spunti.